Chris Sewall here, baseball card collector, investor, dealer, in that order. Welcome everyone. Story time from the files of Adventures in Card Dealing. A couple of really interesting twists to this one, and I have all the financials, which I will share at the end. It's a purchase I made with the Arizona snowman himself, Jeremy Donson, back in May of 2017. As was our agreement on many of our deals, Jeremy paid for the deal, including expenses, and I did all the work selling the cards. Jeremy got paid back first, and we split all profit after that. We decided we were going to post an ad in the LA Times advertising that we were going to be buying collections in the Los Angeles area on a specific weekend. And I think we got something like 8 calls or so, and we ended up just driving around to Los Angeles all day looking at collections. And I think we ended up buying something like 5 collections or so. But the story here is really about the last of the 5 that we bought. Now, the LA Times is a newspaper with a massive audience, so they are not cheap. Jeremy had to front a lot of money to place that ad, $5,000 in fact. He paid for a half-page ad, which put us in a big hole right out of the gate. We were going to need to find, some decent deals just to get back to even, and quite a few deals if this was going to be a successful venture. So we go to the first 4 homes, and we end up buying those 4 collections, and there's some really nice stuff, and we get them at fairly reasonable prices. The kind of thing where you maybe spend $1,000 and you send a few cards off to PSA, and you make a bunch of lots for eBay, and over time you sell it for $2,000. So double your money. And under normal circumstances, I would be very happy with this sort of deal. But because we had spent so much money on the ad up front, this really wasn't cutting it. I don't have the breakdown of the 4 deals or anything, but just imagine, we had now bought 4 deals that at each were going to yield a profit of $1,000. Well, that's $4,000 in profit. That doesn't even cover the cost of the ad. So we were slightly concerned by the time we got to the 5th and final deal. Now, we had intentionally scheduled this 5th deal last because it was the most promising and we wanted to give it the most time. So when we walked in, it was a gentleman, maybe 50. He wasn't... He wasn't rude. He was friendly enough, but it was more that he was just very, very serious. Like this was going to be a business transaction. There was no sort of, getting to know you, friendly chit chat type of thing at all. But he had some killer stuff. A lot of vintage, a lot of high end vintage, including some really nice pre-war stuff. He had some T206 Ty Cobbs, and I want to say he even had a 48 Leaf Jackie Robinson, although I'm not sure my memory is correct on that, but he had a bunch of complete 1970s sets, which were high grade, and a bunch of like 80s sets randomly that didn't have very much value. But overall, a lot of promise with this collection. So I start going through cards in detail and keeping a running tally of what we can pay. And in the meantime, Jeremy's, talking with the guy, trying to make small talk, doing his best to start a friendly relationship. But it's taken me quite a while because, well, he has a lot of cards. I mean, tens upon tens of thousands, and I'm doing my best to go through as fast as I can, but still be accurate. And he also has some sort of rare pre-war stuff, which I was not overly familiar with, so I had to do some research as I go. But it maybe took me like an hour or so, or maybe even more. But at that point, finally, I was ready to start talking numbers. Now, I don't actually remember the specifics of the numbers or anything like that, so I'm just sort of approximating this next part. I go outside with Jeremy to discuss, and I tell him that I think there is safely around $25,000 worth of cards, and I would be very comfortable paying up to $15,000. Jeremy's, happy to hear this, and he decides that we're going to offer the guy $12,000 and see what happens. We go back in, and Jeremy offers the gentleman the $12,000 for his collection, and he quickly responds with, no, we're not even close. All right, let's see if Jeremy can, work his negotiating magic, and he tries, but the negotiation really does not get very far. Again, I don't remember the exact numbers here, but it was something like the guy was insisting on $30K. Jeremy eventually came up to the $15K mark, and the guy came down to $25. But at that point, neither side was going to budge any further. So we were way too far off to make a deal. They were going back and forth, but this just wasn't going to happen. So as I'm listening to the negotiation, I'm trying to get a gauge as to what's really going on. I mean, the guy comes off as very reasonable, so he can't expect us to pay $25,000 for $25,000 worth of cards. I mean, we're dealers. He knows that. We have to have some room for profit. So, obviously he's just overvaluing his collection, and there's probably nothing we're going to be able to really do about that. So I step in and I say, you know what? How about instead of buying the whole thing, what if we just buy individual pieces? We'll go through it. We'll make a offer on each individual item, and maybe there's some items we're really close on, and we can make deals on those, and maybe there's some we're just too far off on, and you can just pass on those, and so we'll buy the ones we're close on, and at least we'll walk out of here buying part of your collection. And he actually agrees to this. He likes that idea, but this doesn't prove to be much of a solution either. We start off with some of the higher dollar items like the T206 Ty Cobbs, and we're just miles off. He's asking for more than we could expect to sell it for. So obviously we have to pass and move on, painful as it is. But there are some items we're sort of close on, but he's still just too high, and he's really holding the line. For example, he had a 1975 top set in high grade. We would not take below $400. Now, keep in mind, this is 2017, so all prices are not what they are today. But, I tell Jeremy, we might sell this set for $500, best case scenario, or in theory, there might be some grading potential that could add some value. But, it's not likely to be much. But in this case, we agreed on the 400 just to sort of get the ball rolling, even though it's not really a good buy for us at that price point. But another item I remember was a 1955 Bowman Willie Mays PSA 7. He would not take below $500, which was basically market value at the time. We agreed to pay the $500, and I did eventually sell it for $600. But after fees, this means we're barely yielding any profit at all. There's a box of 400 1964 Topps Giants cards. They're basically all commons, maybe a few stars mixed in, but not many. Certainly none of the big stars. I had sold these regularly in lots for about $1 a piece on eBay, so I'm expecting this to yield around $400 for us. But he's asking $400. We counter at $300, but he won't budge, and we're about to pass. But I look at them closer, and they're really sharp. So I figure maybe I can get more than $1 each. So we agree to the $400. And at some point we've been through a number of items now, and I actually asked to talk to Jeremy in private. We go outside, and I tell Jeremy, at these prices, we're just not going to be making much money here. I'll be able to squeeze out a small profit, but a lot of this stuff is just sort of bulk vintage commons, which are really time consuming to lot up and sell. And for the amount of work it's going to take me to sell through this stuff, this isn't really something I want to be doing. But we agreed, because of being so far in the hole from the newspaper ad, we were going to go ahead with it anyway and just sort of do the best we can. We ended up spending $6,000 with the guy. We did not get any of his high-end stuff, as we were just too far off on all that. And I'm thinking at this point, maybe I'll be able to squeeze out $1,000 profit from this deal. And, maybe when you combine that with the other 4 deals, add it all up, maybe we'll be able to break even when you factor in the cost of the newspaper ad. So we leave, both sort of bummed that our big newspaper ad investment didn't produce better results. I take all the cards home with me, and I, sort of get to work, sort of sorting everything, combining everything, and sort of trying to figure out what's the best and most efficient way to sell through this. Like I said, it was a lot of bulky stuff overall, a lot of vintage commons and things like that. But I start going through the cards, deciding if there's anything worth sending to PSA. And remember, this was 2017, so PSA was $8 a card if you use their bulk service. And at $8 a card, there's a lot of sort of cheaper cards that are still going to be worth getting graded. I go through the 1975 set closely, checking the pop report on a lot of the commons, and researching what some of the stars sell for in a PSA 8, for example. And there were some cards in there worth grading, although nothing that was going to yield a lot of additional value. And throughout the collections, there were a number of cards that were worth getting graded, but I'd considered this when we bought them. So at this point, I really hadn't found anything that was going to add a bunch of value through grading. But then I get to the 1964 Topps Giants cards. If you remember, they were basically all commons, and there were about 400 of them. When I originally assessed the collection, I hadn't spent more than a minute or two on these, as why would I? They were just dollar commons, and it was part of a much larger collection that had much more valuable items. But now that I was looking at them closer, I realized they weren't just in high grade, they were in ultra high grade, like never been touched before high grade. I start researching them and what they sell for in high grade, and in PSA 8s, the commons basically sell for $5 to $10. So not something you would get graded if they're going to grade an 8. You wouldn't even recover your grading fees. But these look better than 8s almost across the board. Hard to believe on cards from 1964, but that's really how they look to me. In PSA 9, some of the commons sell pretty strong, $50, even up to $100 type of thing. And there's even a few PSA 9s that are very low pops that sell much higher than that. And then in PSA 10s, they sell for multiple hundreds of dollars, and depending on the pop count, certain commons can bring even more. So I called Jeremy and I tell him the news, and I ask him if he's cool investing a little more in grading fees than I had originally thought. Because at this point, he's 5 figures into a deal that may only break even, but he is totally game, as he always is. And we see he gets excited, and we start researching together the 1964 Topps Giants and which ones we should send to PSA. From all the deals in total, we end up sending about 300 cards to PSA. 200 of them are 1964 Topps Giants commons. That's how high grade they were. Basically, half the lot. I really didn't know what to expect. I had never sent an order like this to PSA, and I didn't really know how they would handle, a high-grade batch of 1960s commons. But we did very well on the Topps Giants. Here is a screenshot from one of the PSA orders of the Topps Giants. You can see a bunch of 8s, 8.5s, and 9s, and there's even a few 10s mixed in there. I started listing everything on eBay, and the 1964 Topps Giants and high-grade PSA holders sold very well. Here are some of the higher sales. A Tony Gonzalez and a PSA 9 sold for $295. Most PSA 9s don't sell anywhere near this high, but the Tony Gonzalez was a very low pop. A Jim Maloney PSA 10 went for $405. A Dick Raditz PSA 10 went for $425. Rocky Colavito in a PSA 10 went for $450. Elston Howard in a PSA 10 sold for $646. Gary Peters in a PSA 10 went for $1,000. This is card number 1 in the set, so it's tougher to get in high grade than most others. And at the time that I listed it, it was a pop 6. And the best of all was Ed Brinkman. A PSA 10 sold for $2,900. At the time I sold it, it was a pop 2. As you can imagine, the 1964 Topps Giants basically saved the deal for us. The entire group of 5 deals led to 480 eBay listings for me, and here's the breakdown of how we did. We spent just short of $12,000 on the 5 deals. About half of that was on the last deal. As I mentioned, the newspaper ad cost $5,000. I think the ad ran for 3 days and it was a half-page ad, although I don't remember exactly, but we had $275 worth of expenses. I don't know what that is exactly, as there's no detail in my notes, but probably gas, and maybe we factored in a couple meals or something. And we spent about $2,700 with PSA. Again, this was back when bulk orders were $8 a card, or sometimes they had monthly specials that were even less than that. But total upfront cost was just short of 20 grand. Money in, this is all after fees are accounted for and rounded to the nearest 100. Month 1, 3,000 in sales. Month 2, 7,400. Month 3, 5,600. Month 4, 3,800. It's about here where we broke even, which is a pretty good result on such a bulky collection that requires a lot of grading. Month 5, 3,100. Month 6, 2,800. Month 7, 1,900, and then another 2,600 trickled in over the next few months. Total money in was $30,200. It's a total profit of just over 10 grand. Jeremy and I split that, and in addition, we both kept about $1,000 worth of cards each for our individual PCs. They weren't from the 5th deal, but they were from one of the other deals, and it just worked out that we both wanted to keep about $1,000 worth of stuff. The stuff I kept included a 1962 Lou Brock rookie PSA 7. I don't know how much work this took me, but I'm going to estimate about 2 weeks of full-time work. So if you look at Jeremy and I individually, Jeremy made $5,100 on a $20,000 investment, plus he got $1,000 worth of cards for his PC. I made $5,100 for 80 hours of work, and also kept $1,000 of cards for my PC. Interesting here is that we ended up doing about 9,000 in sales from the 1964 Topps Giants. So if you were to remove those from the equation, this would have really been essentially a break-even purchase. But like I said, the Topps Giants basically saved us and turned this into a really nice deal. But that's it. Thank you everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Please leave comments as to what you thought of this deal and how everything turned out. I always love hearing people's reactions to these stories. These videos are really fun for me to make and relive and remember the adventures. And I still have quite a few left to share. But stay safe, have a great day, and see you again next time. Thanks, guys.